Well, I don't know absolutely anything in real estate. I do have Catherine's expert questions, but my background, I have 3 companies, and just really leading the cutting edge on that storytelling is really the impetus and the demand of everything right now. So I have a nonprofit and branding company which deals with really leveraging short-form storytelling for brands, and an entertainment company. And my clients span anywhere from billionaires like Larry Ellison to new clinical trial startup and tech pharma companies or celebrities. And the key thing about that, and I think why it fits so wonderfully, is because when you're dealing with, especially nowadays, lifestyle brands and what's happening in the world, even with investment, is really about the next story that's happening. People engage in and want to buy in the next story. So I think that has a lot to do nowadays with what's the current trends in Los Angeles and what's the current stories that are happening that are all kind of emerging. So in your view as an expert in this field, what is the current top trend or top demand that we're seeing in real estate in terms of Los Angeles?
I think that there's just a lot of trends, obviously with the election and everything that's going on with Brexit, and we could have a whole hour on that question alone. So I'm going to kind of bring it down to where I'd like to talk about the Chinese market and what they're doing here in Los Angeles real estate. Right now, there are 2 major developments going on. One is with the Wanda Group, which is over $2 billion. It's in Beverly Hills. It's absolutely amazing, and they've already broken ground. And they're going to create the new center, I believe, in Los Angeles, in that Beverly Hills area, and connecting it to Century City, creating a huge walkway. So they're creating this whole lifestyle that wasn't there before, because we are a motor town driving around, but they're creating this beautiful area, and it's going to have the hotels and the condos and all of that. But in addition to that, they're going to have the offices are going to be specifically for entertainment professionals. So I think that's really cool, and media and entertainment professionals. And then the other one is Oceanwide. They just signed an $814 million contract. It's right by the Staples Center, and they've already broken ground. Again, luxury hotel, condos, amazing. The Chinese investor understands that Los Angeles, the state of California, but Los Angeles is the place to be. Next to New York City, this is where they're spending all their money in the United States.
Do the Chinese investors have a competitive edge? Because it's not always just coming in and truckloads of money and you just, can have anything you want. There really is how that dynamic changes, and potentially property skewing its price, thinking what kind of investor do we have. So do they have an edge? Are they dealing with more obstacles when they come to this area?
That's a very interesting question, because a lot of what I find in my practice is that when you put a property on the market and a Chinese buyer will come, let's say it's a $20 million house, and they're buying it for an investment because they understand that they can rent that house. LA is very lease-centric, so people are from the movie industry or wherever industry, they'll come and they'll rent something for a couple of months. So they buy it. But their first thing is when they are coming in and making an offer, they come in about 50% of the offer price. So it's $20 million, and they'll say, great, I'll give you 10%. I mean, $10 million. And there are people who are desperate enough to start negotiating with that. They will run from that so fast because they think, first of all, you're a dishonorable person for putting your property at 20 million when it should have been maybe 11, and blah, blah, blah. You have to negotiate really hard with them, and then they may walk because they understand quality, but you're not going to get it by going down and negotiating. The other thing is, when there's a property on the market and they like it, and then they understand that there are 3 or 4 other people who are also bidding for this property. They will pay as much as 25% more for that property because they will not lose on quality. They are so committed to the United States for real estate. They live here, they're starting businesses here, they're buying houses for their children who are toddlers who they're anticipating going to USC or UCLA now.
Yeah.
So,
And knowing and doing business with Chinese investors and entrepreneurs, there is a very cultural way in which they do business a lot of times through a trusted party that then deals with a real estate agent. So as an agent yourself and in service of the Chinese investors and business people, how are you bridging that gap between a middle person that's more of a representation to being able to directly serve that buyer?
I have found that I've always been a connector. It's gotten me to where I am today. I really believe in synergistic approaches, so I have aligned myself with several people who are very connected in China. I also am a great believer in technology. I use apps that will translate my properties into Mandarin and classic Chinese and Hong Kong Chinese, and then they're also able to just, with their cell phone, through WeChat, I'm on WeChat, so then they can just look at any one of my properties, touch the QR code, and then they'll find out all about the property, they'll find me, and they'll know that I can speak their language. I don't speak Chinese, but I have people who do. And so that's one of the I've used technology just to get there, and then also through other advisors. And the other thing is that as time has gone on, they have learned to just trust me too, because sometimes they don't want to deal with other Chinese people. They want to deal with an American. And so that has actually been a benefit to me in a lot of ways. And one other little funny story, not funny, but they're very superstitious people in buying real estate, whether it's humongous buildings or their houses. But if you ever call them on it, they would say, "Oh no, I don't believe in any of that stuff." And you're like, okay, well, that's great. And then
Yes, is that why we're only looking for homes with 8s in the
eight
address?
and a mountain behind it. Anyway, so there's definitely the numbers stuff, and then also their astrological component. So I have a client, and he has this amazing bunch of buildings in downtown LA. And I said, we have a buyer. Somebody is coming in. They want to buy this. This is the offer. And so he looks at it, and it was a really generous offer. And he's like, it's great, but I can't sell it. And I said, why not? He was like, my feng shui master says I can't sell till 2017. It's like, but I thought you weren't superstitious. Anyway, so they are.
What is I think one of the things, particularly with Chinese buyers, when people see them or they come into meetings, it's immediately like, you don't want to get to know the person, or you don't make the effort to get to know the person. You're just about, oh gosh, how much money am I going to get for this deal? So there seems to be this disparity between really building long-term relations with Chinese investors or business people that come into town. And I loved what you said earlier about how when you really talk to them and you find out their whole story, what you find is they're going to want their children or their grandchildren to attend this college. So while it might be a commercial interest, it may turn into a home buyer interest and some other investment property in terms of other things, if you can get the full spectrum, right? So if someone was coming now, or if people are listening and they're advising, what would be a place to start to invest in Los Angeles that would be profitable, and a focus?
In Los Angeles, the Chinese community has pretty much been in the Arcadia and just more east. They're now venturing more and more to the west, I believe primarily because of the technology companies that are also popping up there. They're very smart in that area. If you have prime Beverly Hills flat, no hills, flat property, they are very willing buyers. So, and also around Westwood. So anywhere where there's amazing education, you will find Chinese investors. And again, you have to be very patient with Chinese investors. They're not like perhaps the European investor or the American investor that will see something, fall in love, and move on. They really take their time. They really scope out the situation. They get advice from a lot of different people. And then when they make a decision, you know it's golden. Like it's gonna happen. Which is another good point to bring up. The Japanese, were here in the 80s and they just lost their shirts. And a lot of the reasons for that is because when the Japanese were here, it was mostly like insurance companies and corporations and all of those type of people, companies that were buying Los Angeles real estate. And the thing is that the Japanese were known to hold on to that, but they proved not to do that. They did exactly what was against their society. The Chinese investor, they like holding on to real estate, and they will hold on whether it goes up or down. They're not the ones to get rid of it. American investors tend to not want to hold on to real estate in their portfolio. It hurts their stock prices. But the Chinese community will buy in areas that brand names, anything named brand, they love. Beverly Hills, there's only one in the whole world, so they'll buy into that. So anyway, so ideally, great to, close to education, great education,
Yeah.
and name brand.
And it's not- yeah.
I'm sorry, one more thing. Okay, so in line with the whole name brand thing, they will buy the most expensive houses, and then you go inside and it's just decorated poorly because they don't believe in spending money on furniture and those things. They think that's frivolous. So there's an opportunity there for furniture companies or designers to become, again, name brands, and then they would also, because the Chinese investor doesn't understand the design process, and the idea of paying $2 million for designer, just the service fee,
That is so funny
It's
because I had
crazy.
a meeting with some Chinese investors, and when we finished the meeting, they looked around and one person said, "I'd like to buy your house, but I want to buy your house with everything you have in it, the pictures, the furniture,
Yes.
everything." I was like, "What? No!" They're like, "But I want it exactly like this." So because it was all
Yes,
thought out, right?
and they'll pay for that. But if it
That's
were an
really
empty
funny.
house, they will not spend the money just to replicate that.
That's interesting. So I don't know if you covered this already, but you did have this great question about what is the most important new force in the U.S. real estate, which is, of course, is broader than
Yeah.
Los Angeles, but
In the United States, right now, the Chinese are the greatest force. Americans too, by the way, but I think Chinese are the single greatest force because the REN, the devaluation, they're putting their money into U.S. real estate because that will, just to protect their wealth. They also have a lot of liquid assets. So as a buying population, they are the strongest force. 2016, they purchased 4 times more real estate than they did between 2010 and 2015, and that was $315 billion. This year, 2016, promises to be the best ever. So yeah, they're a force.
that's awesome. And is there, just in closing, is there any kind of place to start or any main place to start to look in terms of research or entry into investment that's best to kind of sway the Chinese market or buyer over to?
I think the best advice I could give to a Chinese investor is to make sure that they have a partner in the United States, such as myself, or other trusted advisors who absolutely know the market so that they don't get taken advantage of. Sometimes some of the investors will just go with somebody who's not that great, but somebody who they know from somebody from back in the China, whatever, and that person is not the best. You could have them as an advisor, but you really need to have somebody with who has the expertise in the city that you want to invest in. That's the greatest advice, is to just have a professional. You wouldn't do brain surgery just because you knew somebody. Like, why would they ever do that?
Yeah.
I'll go for real estate.
Awesome. Catherine, thank you so much for it, and thank you, everybody.